GBNews presenter Neil Oliver. Neil, you absolute legend. How are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me on the show.
No, good stuff. I mean, there was a few... well, there's quite a lot to get stuck into here, quite literally. I mean, how clean are our coasts then? It looks like they're just kind of cesspits.
Well, I think we often get told that the beaches and indeed the rivers, the coastline is cleaner than it used to be. That's a message that is often broadcast. But I can tell you, when we were filming the series Coast, more than once we covered the story of raw sewage being pumped finding its way into the sea. It gets dumped in rivers, and the rivers empty into the sea. And we often met with a group called, for example, Surfers Against Sewage. And these were guys that were going out surfing in Cornwall, for example, and they had horrific evidence of just what was being pumped into the sea that they were then surfing in. You know, the images that we were able to show. I mean, it was really graphic, really shocking stuff. So there's no getting away from the fact that...
How does it happen, Neil? Sorry to interrupt, mate. Sorry to interrupt. Well, I don't understand how it happens.
Well, whenever there's an incident, I mean, where the water companies are responsible for getting the sewage, that which comes out your bath and comes out your toilet and goes into the sewerage system, it's got to go somewhere, and the companies, you know, process it and deal with it, and it's supposed to be clean water, or clean as possible, that finally gets dumped. But when there's an emergency, as they call it, say there's heavy rain or a flood, and the system is in danger of being overwhelmed, where the only other option would be for the sewage to find its way back up into people's homes, coming back up your toilet or coming back into the house, then the companies are then able to pump raw sewage, or to release raw sewage, untreated sewage, into the waterways. And of course, once it goes into the rivers, the rivers eventually empty into the sea. But protesters will tell you that the water companies have paid something. I think it's like 60 billion has been paid out to their investors in the form of dividend, you know, over a measurable period. And the allegation is that those companies are not spending enough investing in the systems that would prevent them being overwhelmed by the sort of emergencies that I'm talking about. I mean, you're talking about like getting on for 500,000 events like this in 2020, where raw sewage is just allowed to go into the rivers, and it is catastrophic. I mean, for example, there are only 200 chalk streams in the world. They're crystal clear water, because the water is filtered through the natural chalk. 200 in the world. 85% of those chalk streams are in England. And those are being destroyed because raw sewage is allowed to go into those chalk streams. They're often talked about as our coral reefs, but in fact they are infinitely rarer and more at threat than chalk reefs on account of sewage. And sewage undoubtedly goes into the sea all the time. I mean, you can smell it sometimes. You know, on the coast, in certain places, at certain times of the year, after certain kinds of incidents, you can smell it. You can see stuff that's, you know, you can see the evidence, used sanitary items and the rest that washes back up onto the beach. It's absolutely happening. And I think it goes to the heart of something that's a bit empty and a bit hollow about the way that we like to claim that we care about the environment and that we're going to save the world. You know, as is so often the case, you know, protesters talk about saving the world, but they're not paying attention to what's literally happening in their own backyard. You know, we are a wasteful and messy, dirty species in many instances. We waste too much, we throw too much away, we expect the things that we flush away and throw away to just somehow disappear from our sight. But of course, that's not what happens.